Hello and welcome back to this channel Comic Book. Today, we will be doing a recap of a Marvel visual novel called Black Widow, Itsy Bitsy Spider. This novel is about Natasha Romanoff, who has always led a life of adventure. First, she was a Soviet spy, fighting on the Cold War front line. She then defected to the West, eventually becoming a superhero and an Avenger. Natasha has earned a reputation as a consummate professional, coldly efficient, and as deadly as her namesake. But now, her time as Black Widow may be running out. Yelena Belova, the new Black Widow, seeks to claim the mantle she feels was stolen from her motherland. Without further delay, let's start the video. In the Middle Eastern country of Rapistan, the test of a new serum is underway. A soldier is given a dose and it turns him into a frenzied super-strong fighting machine, killing his foes, and in 2 minutes, he is dead, his body a dried-out husk. The test is considered a success. Meanwhile, in New York, Natasha Romanoff is looking through a chest of her belongings and she pauses at a photo of her late husband. Both of her phones ring and Black Widow is recruited by both the US and the Russians to find the new bioweapon. She is informed that the inventor of the bioweapon is Dr. Didier Inès, and that she has to come to Rapistan to complete this mission. Soon, she hears the doorbell and goes to answer it. She asks who was it, a friend or a foe. The person on the other side says that depends if he gets tied if he turns out to be a foe. Natasha opens the door and sees Matt Murdock. Matt says to her that she was looking quite beautiful today. He imagines. Natasha then says to him that these kinds of jokes never get old if it was Matt who is saying them. Matt says to Natasha that she was sweet but her heartbeat was going very fast and asks her if she was okay. Natasha says to Matt that it was nothing serious, and it was just a little mortal thing. Natasha asks Matt why was there, and if was there to spend some romantic time with her again. Matt says that he was thinking about it and then he picks up a picture and asks Natasha that was it an old photo of Alexei, her late husband. Natasha tells him that it was, but she doesn't know where she found it. Matt tells her not to mumble in front of a blind man. He says that Natasha's heartbeat was very fast, and she has her late husband's picture out again. He asks her if everything was okay. Natasha says that it was nothing, she was just thinking about some things, and Matt came at a bad time. She further tells him that she has to leave the city for a few days. Matt asks her if it was something related to Avengers, and Natasha says that only if she fails. Meanwhile, a blonde girl in a black leather suit is spying on her from the next apartment. Matt says to Natasha that he will take her to the airport, or was he too much of a daredevil for her? Natasha tells him to stop and says that she has neighbors. Matt hears something and tells Natasha about it. Natasha looks at the apartment next to her and then says to Matt to hurry as she was getting late. At the airport, that blonde girl keeps on following Natasha, and she even gets on her flight to the Middle East after stealing an attendant's uniform. She ties her up in the washroom after taking her uniform and says sweet dreams to her. Sometime later, in a warehouse in Rapistan, Natasha was looking around for the bioweapon and soon she discovers it, but at this point, she hears some soldiers. As she goes to check, she sees the same blonde girl who was caught by the soldiers. That blonde girl says something in Russian language and a soldier asks the others if she was speaking Russian. Another soldier says that she was, and although he can't speak Russian, he understands what she is saying. He says that the girl was saying to them to wait for a minute. As he finished his sentence, the girl quickly attacks them and defeats them. As he was trying to escape by using a grapnel, she sees Natasha looking at her from above. The soldiers quickly get back on their feet and catch the blonde girl. Natasha and the blonde girl say something to each other in Russian, and the soldier asks his fellow soldier what were they talking about. He tells the others that the one on the wall asked the blonde girl how were things going. Natasha then jumps down and says to the blonde girl that she is glad to hear that cause she was looking like she was in trouble. The blonde girl says to Natasha that she would have been just fine if Natasha didn't take her place of cover. Natasha apologizes to her and quickly takes 2 of the soldiers down. Then Natasha says to the blonde girl that she thought that the blonde girl have been tracking her well, and she would have guessed that. The blonde girl, after getting free, kicks a soldier and asks Natasha that Natasha knew. Natasha asks the blonde girl that did she meant if Natasha knew that she was being followed by her. Then the answer is yes. Natasha further says that there was much more to that. There were still some things that she didn't know. The blonde girl says to Natasha questions who was. Natasha says that's one of the questions. Then the blonde girl says to Natasha that her name was Yelena Belova and that she is a student from the Red Room in Moscow. She asks Natasha if she remembers that place and then says that she knows that Natasha remembers it and yes, it was still working. She says to Natasha that Natasha is its greatest legend. She calls her by her former name, Natalia Romanova, and says although she is no longer Russian. Natasha tells Yelena that she is working now so Yelena will call her Black Widow. Yelena says to Natasha that she got it wrong. she is the one who will call Yelena the Black Widow. She further says to Natasha that what Natasha was thinking was right. Yelena is the first student in Red Room who has surpassed Netzaha's marks. She says that although she lacks Natasha's experience, she is still equal to or even better than her in other aspects. Natasha then says to her, or so the papers say. Yelena says to Natasha that she turned her back on Russia and now she is an American citizen and a superhero. Yelena further says, unlike Natasha, she still has family in Kiev who are waiting for Yelena to make them proud and that she hasn't forgotten what the Black Widow's core. The Black Widow is a spy. Natasha, while picking a walkie-talkie, says to Yelena that she has picked the wrong day for all this and that her patience was already running quite low. Yelena at that moment puts a knife against Natasha's neck and says so was her. Meanwhile, in Washington, at the Pentagon, the US and Russian generals fight over the fact that which country will Black Widow bring the bioweapon back to. They both fight by giving out their reason. The Russian general says that the Black Widow is a Russian, so she will bring the weapon back to Russia, but the American general says that has the Russian general ever heard of the Avengers? Black Widow is part of them and she will bring the bioweapon back to America. Back to Natasha and Yelena. Natasha says to Yelena that she didn't think that Yelena will try to kill her before knowing her mission's details, and that if Yelena is the Black Widow, she must deliver the information as well. Yelena says to Natasha what was to know. She says that Natasha's mission was to retrieve the bioweapon that was in front of them in the crate. Natasha asks Yelena, this base is filled with soldiers and they all have weapons. Does she have the plan to escort this crate out of this base and to get out of there alive after killing her? Yelena says that she will manage, and although she doesn't know which country was Natasha planning to deliver this bioweapon to, she does know where the Black Widow's allegiance is. Yelena says to Natasha that she really respects and admires her, but now Natasha was getting old. While she was saying all this, some soldiers come in front of the warehouse, and Natasha was holding the walkie-talkie, which she picked up a little while ago. Natasha pressed the button, and of which their conversation was heard by the soldiers who were outside. As Yelena finishes her sentence by asking Natasha if was she not, the soldiers barge in and start attacking them. Natasha uses this chance and frees herself. She quickly picks up the crate and jumps behind the box. As the soldiers approached, Yelena started fighting them, and Natasha got the window that she desperately needed. By using her position on high ground, Natasha avoids all this commotion and jumps behind the soldiers. By using a rope, she quickly makes the soldiers fall on the ground and runs off with the crate, while Yelena was busy fighting. Yelena takes the gun of a soldier and hits the remaining soldiers with it and takes them down. Soon she hears some other soldiers who are coming there, but before they can reach the warehouse, Yelena points the gun towards the gate of the warehouse. As the soldiers enter, they see Yelena, who was prepared before, pointing a gun at them. She doesn't waste a second and opens fires. After killing them, Yelena goes out of the warehouse and hides behind a truck. She sees Natasha going inside a helicopter. As Natasha turns on the motor of the helicopter, everyone on base gets alert. Although Natasha manages to get the helicopter in the air, the soldiers present at the base quickly take out a rocket launcher. They aim at Natasha's helicopter and fire a missile at it. The missile hits the helicopter and the helicopter explodes. While everyone was busy looking at the falling helicopter and saving themselves from dying, the soldiers think that it was over. But Natasha survives this, and during all this chaos, she gets inside a truck and she drives it through the fire and escapes the base. While driving through the desert, Natasha looks at her bag and takes out the doctor's note from it. As she was reading it, she was unaware of the fact that Yelena also survived, and she was standing on the top of the truck while holding a gun in her hands. And that's all for today, guys. Stay tuned to get more new videos. Stay safe and keep watching.